Controls may win for that moment, meaning that your daddy has done what he's supposed to do for you to learn for that moment. But connections that he made me feel after that period wins for a lifetime. Meaning that whatever I am today, because he has told us story whereby their father then, once you spend your money, that's the end of your future, the end of the day. Controls may win for that moment, but connections wins you the lifetime. So build the collections among your kids. It's going to last for a lifetime.
Hello, guys. Thank you so much for joining us once again on Lens Out Studio, where we, classical of us, we roll up our sleeves and talk the way we think matters are. We are not subject experts. We are just people putting out our opinions out there, and as much as possible, our experience. I remain Tosin, and I have with you Wanderlust. You want to say hi?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Tosai, for having me in Lens Out today. It's always a pleasure, being in the studio with you. I want to welcome all our viewers all over the world to another day, another times with Lens Out, where we bring you real, undiluted conversation straight to your ears. I know today's topic is going to be a very wonderful one, and I know you guys are eager to hear from us. So at this point, I'm going to leave it to Tosai to do the honor of bringing on the topic and we dissect it. Let's get it on.
Yeah, let's break it down into pieces. The topic before me is dad prioritizing connection over control. Don't forget that what we have said earlier, the conception of this channel is that we're going to be dad focused and we'll spread any topic that attached to that. So today we're looking at control and connection. Which one should African dad focus on? But before I dive into that, let me just give you a little perspective. This idea of dad leading with connection instead of just control is not only heartwarming, it is also backed by research and science study. Study shows that kids thrive more when parents include warmth, listening, and clear boundary instead of fear and harshness. This kind of parenting supports confidence, emotional stability, and healthier behavior. And when fathers are truly present and connected, children often carry that strength into their relationship and growth. The benefit is actually far outweigh the nucleated home that parents are building. It cascades into how our kiddos relate with people outside our family. How they are growing, they are relating more with people. So it's very important for us to be able to know, first delineate difference between control and connection and see which one is preferred and which one is preferred, or is a combination of both. So it's very important for us to get that up and rolling. So my first question actually is, what does connection over control really means for parenthood? So the first question is, we're trying to look at what does connection and control actually mean as a father? Because we say when things are well defined, you'll be able to know how to address them. So over to you, Ben.
Yes. So honestly, let me start with saying that connections over controls means leading your child through relationship, not fear. That is the way I can, start with that particular concept of what we are looking at today. Now, to now explain it in a very short and a very, understandable way for every of that parent outside there. Now, I see control as you must obey what I say. My connection on his own hand, you trust me because I care, right? So if we have that mindset, we will understand that, that particular, question being asked is just to ensure that we have a clear understanding of what we want to achieve in this particular broadcast today. So in terms of, getting clarity, now let's put it this way. Now, Controls focuses on behaviors. Now, connections itself focuses more on understanding, right? Again, we look at controls gets, you over short-term compliance. And again, you look at connection built a long-term character. So if we have that, like I said, if you have that mindset, we will understand that it's better for us to have more of collections with our kids. But again, we cannot take the place of control out of the equation. But the connection part is very, very crucial, because when a child feels emotional safe, they are more likely to listen to you willingly, not just act out of fear. So for me, connection is very key. If I want to grade it, I would say more of connections, less of control, but control should be part of it. I will leave it like that. What do you think from your side?
Yeah, I'm gonna read this out. This is what I wrote down. I said it means a dad lead with love, listening, and guidance instead of fear or harshness.
It has.
He still set rules, but he explained them and stay emotionally connected with their children.
Exactly.
This help the parents not only be seen as an authoritarian. So some of us grew up. I typically have come to learn that you communicate with story. Some of us grew up back home in Nigeria under military dictators. And we know when a military man says, I remember because I grew up in the north, and sometime, which is also happening, you have religious violence, and then they typically send out the military men, soldiers. We call them soldiers, and they send them out to the street to be able to quell the violence and bring stability back to the city. When those people come on ground, the rules and regulation change. They are authoritarian. They are enforcers of law. That is what a representation of an authoritarian, that's what typically comes to my head. That because I remember there's one of siblings were actually having a quarrel, fighting actually on the street during one of those times where the soldiers were on ground. And the parents and the neighbors have tried to resolve the case, but they were still just making a mess of themselves. They were not listening to their. The soldiers just called them and told them that there's what we call drainage. Drainage is actually a class called gutter. So the soldier just say, go in there, go and find fish for ga. Bro, to be sincere, all through when I grew up, I never come across those people fighting again. That is
wonderful.
Authority. When somebody choose not to listen, that's authority imposing. That's imposing authority on them. And I also remember that kids who are stubborn then, who are totally out of control, are all mostly sent to military schools because they need some iron fist control.
True.
That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about, parents, especially dad and kids. Relationship is better built when there's a connection. So what does it mean? I've been able to, with my story, be able to explain what authority means.
True.
Now, connection is you and your kid can relate. You can empathize with them. You can explain things to them, come down to their level and explain things to them in their own lingua, within their own limit, helping them to understand, and also helping them to, and also you seeing the world from their own point of view.
Sure.
We can sit on our high horse and say, and be an authoritarian.
And be adamant, exactly.
Yes, and just be saying, do A, B, C, and just setting rules. Rules are important with kids. However, while setting those rules, you also need to understand that they have the capacity to be able to understand what you're trying to say. So I'm going to leave it at that. I don't know if I've done
yes, you've done justice to that. You've done justice to that. At the end of the day, we're just trying to ensure that we remove too much discipline with the kids. We should just be relationship rather than dominating, the whole conversation. But at the end of the whole, the end of the whole things. which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and to also wrap it up, there's actually an African adage that say a child who is carried on the back does not know how far the journey is. So a child who is carried on the back does not know how far the journey is. So you
Exactly.
are helping the child. You are lifting some of the load, but helping them to understand that discipline, rules are important.
Exactly.
However, you also need to sorry, I'm losing my trail of thought. But what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say is that control and connections can work hand in
In
hand.
exactly.
Question, yeah. Question
Next.
number 2. Why are more dads moving away from old-fashioned authoritarian parenting? There's an African adage that said a child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down for
Mm,
warmth. A
mm.
child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down for warmth. So why are parents moving away from that being authoritarian and moving more, especially with level of education, moving more towards connection? Over to you.
Okay, so let me start by saying that old school parenting wasn't evil in time past. It was based on survival skills. Growing up, it was more, man, you just need to survive. So there was no such thing like exposure, in terms of who we can learn one or two things from. It was based on what has been learned from generation where they grew up being passed down to many of us. Sincerely speaking, our fathers raised us then in a very tough environment. We all know that, you just have to be tough for it to survive. And that's one of the reasons why, today when you travel all over the world, a typical Nigeria from where you are coming from would
Yeah, we
definitely
survive.
survive, right? We survive. Now, obedience was necessary. It was necessary during that particular time, but emotional expression wasn't prioritized. We saw it when we were growing up. Do you think they care about your emotion? Do you think they care about
They
what
will
you're
beat
feeling?
you and beat your emotion.
They will, yeah, exactly. But now that explains that things are changing. Now that explains that, we are more exposed to so many things now. They call the world that we live in today as a global village, meaning that a lot of things have come to play. Now, today, you will require emotional intelligence in dealing with them. You go to most of your workplaces now, most of the things that we ask you is that, are you, in terms of your intelligence, are you very emotional intelligent? Do you always spark at everything? So that's one of the reasons. See, to some extent, we learn from our parents. Again, based on things we've seen around us, we thought that, why will I be reacting to things in a very rational way? We've seen over the time. So all these things coming together now, kids today are exposed more on information. Forget about what you are training them, what you have done, what you have taught them, what you have done them is good. But they rely more on information now. I'm telling you, I can cite a lot of examples down that your kids go to school and a teacher will, touch them, they can send that teacher to the teacher will go on suspension. But
Yeah.
at home, you will discipline them and you'll be telling them, a lot of things like that. So, and again, we have to be very aware about mental awareness. These days, kids plays that particular role. I'm not stable. A lot of things are, not in place for me. At the end of the day, we just want to emphasize that fear-based parenting leads to rebellion, emotional distance. That's why authority without relationship creates resentment. So it is very important for us to know that a modern father of today, you just have to it's good to be softer, but at the same time, it's all about being wise. Use your emotional intelligence when dealing with kids. Again, your connection with them matters overall because you don't want them to lose out in life. Why information are very crucial. You, as a father, has an important role to ensure that you are connected with your kid at the long run because you are building him or her up for tomorrow. Because when it comes to your emotion, you just need to know how to play the politics and learn how to react to some situation. So I'll leave it like that. Let me hear from your own side.
Yeah. You know what? I started with the African adage that said a child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel warmth. And
Exactly.
the question is, why are more dads moving away from old school? Because
Mm.
they don't want the village to be burned down to feel warm.
Nice one, nice one, nice one.
So children need love, attention, and belonging. I will talk
Mm.
about the belonging. You know,
Mm.
I was talking with now. Maybe as I'm growing older, because this is a part of wisdom. You talk with stories.
It's true, exactly.
I was talking to a colleague of mine, and I was telling the fellow, I think we're in the conversation, and the fellow was saying that somebody that wasn't listening, wasn't doing the right thing. How do you ensure the subordinate cooperate, work, blah, blah. I said it's two things. One, it could be training, or it could be wrong fit. So if it's wrong fit, the guy, because I do not believe people are lazy. I believe people are in wrong fit. Somebody that wants to be a YouTuber, you now ask him to come and be a data analyst. He's gonna be a ton of work. So he's gonna do the data analysis as long as possible before he ejects out with resentment before he go back to the YouTuber that he wants to do. So belonging comes when you feel a sense of what, like you see this as an extension of you. And with that, you'll be able to build, you bring in your character, you bring in your best. You understand? You cooperate. So when you say, when a parent allow kids to build equity, sense of belonging in the relationship, it leads to openness. And the beauty is that the child will not burn down that village. What that means is that most elderly people, if you notice, when you grow old, one of the problems that kill elderly people is isolation, because they don't relate with, they have kids who are obedient listener, because the relationship has been top to bottom. Do A, B, C, D in this way.
True.
I'll give an example, another example too. I remember, maybe because of my accent, I think I have a strong one, but I've been getting better. I remember whenever I'm at early stage, whenever I'm conversing with with my kids, you're like, go and do A, B, C, D. And she will go and come back and we do A, DQ. Like, be now. This is what we asked you to do. I know you're very, very smart. What is happening? You know, I say, but I did not understand what you said. Why don't you understand what I say? Hey, your voice was elevated. Why was my voice elevated? I just say you angered me, and that's why my voice was. Yeah, but your voice was elevated, so I could not ask you what you're saying. So I tried to figure what you're saying out. And I now did what I think you said. I'm sorry, I didn't do the right thing. So I just feel, oh my goodness. So I've come to know that when they have a sense of belonging, they can openly talk to you, they can trust you. They won't burn down that village, that relationship. When you're at your older age, you can be able to connect with them, call them, joke about things. They can trust you. And that the cascading effect is actually exponential. Things that is going on in their life. A colleague of mine called me and he was asking the question, oh, I did this, this, and that, but the data is not showing up in the right way. What happened? I say, just click refresh. So he was so embarrassed that, you mean that's the reason why because if you call me, I'll tell you, book appointment on my calendar. So because of just clicking refresh, I had to wait an hour plus to reach you and be able to say this. Why was I able to do that? Because of experience that I've had. I've had that same problem. So if our kids cannot reach us, there are some experiences that we've had that we can just tell them, just click refresh, and that will solve their problem. But if we do not build equity, sense of belonging, they cannot reach us. For us to just use that word, just click refresh, and everything will be fine. So it's very, very important that parents always embrace connection.
Very, very true. Very true.
Gone are those days that is peasant and king. Now, those relationships are gone. You relate with your parents, with your kids, you converse with them. They are very, very smart. If I'm as smart, or maybe it's their exposures, because sometimes I'm jealous. Like, if I'm as smart as they are at their age, I think I should be.
Honestly, it should be a wonderful time, honestly, for every one of us. Because they really came out during the jet age. This is the jet age, where you have all the information at your disposal.
Exactly. So let's go to our third question.
Yes.
Can a dad be firm and still be emotionally connected? There's an adage that said, the left hand and the right hand wash each other.
Mm.
Can a dad be firm and still be emotionally connected? Left hand washes right hand washes left hand. All laughing for
Oh,
yeah. So when I saw that, I was like, oh. So love and discipline can work together. Father
yes.
can be both caring and firm. So the question is, can a father be firm and still be emotionally connected?
Absolutely, yes. Like you've said, in fact, the best fathers are both firm and connected. Now, but it's very important for us to break down logically. Firm means boundaries. Connected means empathy. Firm says this behavior is not acceptable. Now, connected say, I still love you. So, explaining all these things in different ways, harsh and firm, shows humiliation. In the harsh way, shows humiliation, yelling, and fear. But in a very firm way, it's very calm, consistent, and clear any form of consequences. So using a word like you correct your child without crushing their spirit. It's very, very
Good.
key.
Yeah.
It's very, very key. You correct them without crushing. And again, at the end of the day, you want to ensure that you want to you want to ensure that children respect their father who are consistent. Because at the end of the day, they create a bond with their father, which creates a safe heaven for them, right? As you join. So for me, looking at that question shows that you just need to be firm and be connected always with them. Like I said, do not explode unnecessarily. It's good to stand firm, but it's good to sound harsh at times, but still show that you love them. Yeah, like you said, what about the bomb? Are we not to? I mean, I'm having far. What's the father? That adage in Yoruba. I don't know how to, say.
Interpret it.
Or what about the hand that you used to spank the child is the same hand. The other hand we used to join that you love him, right? So it's all about inculcating what will be a lasting legacy for them. We have seen a lot of people in the social media space, for one reason or the other, they say, no, don't watch YouTube, don't watch this, it's for their own good. And you stand firm on that. But we've seen a family whereby you can watch something that is educative. We have seen a lot of people creating, a lot of stuff for themselves and be a better person. So as a parent, you need to step in and ensure that you step in, not in a very harsh way. Don't watch YouTube. You want to spoil your life? Don't you think that what you are doing there is rubbish? This and that. But at the end of the day, you have the responsibility of seeing out what they are looking at, ensuring that they are protected, and explaining the consequences for them. Because at the end
Yeah.
of the day, we want to build a better world for them, whereby they will have a very good, emotional intelligence at the end of the day. So I will leave it like that so that you
You
can
know,
give me your own
you're
points.
talking and I'm taking note. Very soon I'm gonna call you a professor. I like three things you said I actually took note of. Don't crush their spirit. Don't correct them in anger. Explain consequence to
Exactly.
them. I
Very
think
true.
those three are very, very important.
See, Tosin,
Don't
honestly, I need to tell you this. Myself and my kids, we fight sometimes where I will just burst into their room. They are not watching YouTube, but they might be watching them. Like I said, you're watching YouTube. How bad that day? You said that you on YouTube now. You have to trust us now. And I said, okay, correct. You're correct.
let me even talk about the consequence of
Hmm,
YouTube to kids,
a
which
little.
find
Yeah.
out from some studies,
Hmm.
is that there's this YouTuber that is called Short,
Yeah, short film.
whereby they might have maybe 10 or 100 video compiled shot together, and the fellow will be talking very fast, like the speed is 2x. What that does is that it shortens attention. So
Oh,
kids who watch that a lot they have that they have a shortened attention. They cannot
mm,
listen, they cannot concentrate. The implication is actually far than
mm,
the benefit might be they are not disturbing you at the moment. They are letting you do it, live, make I live. You understand? But the consequence is at a low attention deficit. They
mm,
cannot concentrate. They cannot
mm.
focus.
Short span later. It's not.
They get easily agitated. because the what that is doing for them is just making everything to be so fast and so
Mm.
fast. That being said about consequence of YouTube. So currently, even me myself, I've tried to reduce. I have tried to stop, not entirely stop, because there's still some good stuff you can watch. But now we're
Yes.
like, if you want to watch YouTube, come and show me the channel you want to watch.
Mm.
It's not educational. What do you want to watch? You have Netflix, you have all these channels. Watch anything you want to watch from there. And stay within your. We also classify each kids
Yes.
within your age group to stay within your age group. So that being said, so the question is, can a dad be firm and still be emotionally balanced? Yes, a right hand can wash left hand can wash right hand. You can be firm and be emotionally balanced. You can set boundary, but whenever you're setting boundary, don't do it when you are angry.
Mm.
And that is what I wrote down. Don't correct in anger. I remember I said I'm not a story man. Yeah, Bass lives in where we grew up in. One of the things I remember the child was saying, if I could remember vividly, is whenever they are, and it's not even only one. I think there's one of my friends who that said that in school, that whenever their mom is making food, and she's talking to you, come on, blah, 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 come and do this, come and do that, and you're not doing that, they know that whatever is in the hand of their mom is coming straight at their head. So if you want to disobey, you have to wear your track suit and be ready to run.
Anytime soon.
Because anything is flying your way,
Oh God.
flying you. So don't correct in anger.
Mm.
You can be the best dad and also be a disciplinarian. You can and that's why I talk about sense of belonging. When you allow a child to the child build equity in your relationship, they know that if you are correcting them, you're also explaining to them why you're correcting them, and they can imbibe that. And that will also make parenting so difficult to be.
Mm.
If you ask me now, I think older parenting is much more easier because you're just really reading down the do not, the do not, the do not. But now you are not only saying the do not, you also have to mind the lingua. You cannot, how you say it, the words you use, you are not saying it in
Mm.
anger.
Mm.
So all this, and
Mm.
because not only because you want to pass down your will, you also want to build somebody that is robust, sound,
Mm.
highly intelligent, highly confident, that can now there was a conversation that my daughter was having with one of my family member, and we're trying to tell the guy that, hey, why don't you come to visit us? Why don't you? The next thing, and one of them just say, don't let them gaslight you. I say, gaslight at your age. So you can see, so they have some buzzword.
They have
That's
it.
to
They
tell you the
know it.
exposure that they are, because some of them read a lot. I see myself as being smart, but I'm pretty sure I did
Mm.
not read as much as some of them are reading now at their age.
They have a lot of
So
mission. Yeah.
the exposure is far outreaching
Very wide.
than or wide. So because of that, correction, yes, you can correct. Yes, you can also set boundary, but set boundary and correction in love and care and empathy. So let's go to the fourth one. What are simple ways that can build connection with their kids every day? What are the simple ways that can build connection with their kids every day?
Mm.
There's an adage that says, little by little, a little become a lot. So what does dad need to do daily to
Okay.
build connections with their
Yeah.
kids?
Yeah, for me, I won't waste much time here because, like you said, and again, I'm going to quote an idea that says, "A little drop of water makes a mighty ocean. This little habit creates, a better society tomorrow." So I'm going to be very strict and direct here. Number one, I will always do what is called a daily 5-minute check-ins with them. Not about their grade. How was your school today? How was school today? I want to hear from them. I call them, to just explain what happened to, in school in general with them. With that, you'll be able to have an understanding that who was fun. Oh, I make friends. Oh, this was what happened. Oh, this was what is going on. So I will be abreast, keep updated as to what is going on, as to maybe if they want to come again tomorrow and say, that is something like this happened, right? they are always quick to, share with me, right? So a check-in with them is very, very crucial. And again, I want to stress again, number 2 time is device free time. See, if it is just for 15, 30 minutes, it's very, very important. I know that most of them, when they come back from school, they still want to go for extra lessons and all. Always have a time whereby you call them, you just sit down together and just talk. Just talk in general. Talk about things, that are very, very crucial, things that can help them in their future. With encouraging that you are, setting example of how to build connection with them as they go, because these are things like this is something they will say, I remember mama when I was a little, when my dad would always check in with us. Do you remember those times? I remember the time when daddy would create time for us. We just sit down, we discuss and all. The number 3 thing is physical, affections. Try to, when you are going, hey, kids, I love you. See you later. They come back, you hug them. Welcome back. I was school. Let them feel love. High five. It doesn't, at times, I might be angry. One of my daughter would just do like this. I would just use my hand to eat, just for her to just leave me and go, right. And again, at times I just show that, tap them. Hey, you're doing a good thing. It's just for you to just encourage them so that it shouldn't be. And again, this part of the world where we are, whereby you depend solely on their friends back in school and you yourself, right? So you just have to be there with them. And again, as a parent, as a father, it's very important to admit when you are wrong. Saying, yes, I overreacted. At the end of the day, build trust, right?
Yeah.
Don't feel that you are guilty. Yes, I overreacted at that time, but it's needed. Because as you go along, you understand why I'm doing this, but I'm sorry, right? Then again, let's do some shared activities. Let's do some cooking. Let's do some driving. Let's fix time, put together to spend time together. And again, this is the world we live in. Because at the end of the day, family comes first. Whatever family you build will create a better society. So as a father, you just have to be there always for them, regardless. I'll leave it like that.
Yeah, that was actually spot on. Talk, play, and listen. Talk, play, and listen. Little bricks, blocks
Yes.
build a house. So you have captured it well. One of my fond memory that I remember is whenever I sit with my mom and she's telling me story of family story. I could relate, saying this happened to this. If I was documenting that, I would by now be selling book on Amazon. So I relate with that and create fun moments. Moment by moment. I used to think like this. This life is like a candle. When you have a candlestick and you light it, it does not matter again whether you are using the candle light to read or you just on it for it to just glow. No matter what you are using or you are not using the candlestick for, it is burning. So that is what happened with our kids. As well with our kids, our kiddos, as they are growing with us, we are mad, frustrated, happy, joyous. Let them share all those moments with you. Be human. One of the big problem of that is being hero. You want them to see you as mighty hero.
As a superhero.
Yes, as a Superman always. No, be human. Funny enough, sometimes I talk about my frustration, even my work frustration with my kid. I say, really, it happens to you too? Yes, it does happens to me. Yeah. Or sometimes I'll share some highlights. I had some wonderful presentation today. And how did it go? Or maybe I'm having a presentation tomorrow. Daddy, have you studied? Have you read? Do you have your degree? So I'm creating relationship and rapport because it's like a candle. It is burning. Whether you use it or not, it's really that you're creating in their mind. So that is how you build relationship. And not only for the kids, also for you as a parent. When you grow old, you have people that you can relate with, people who you have poured yourself into. Because that's what we are doing as a parent. It's not bought. The kids are not bought. We're actually pouring ourselves into our aspiration. We are also we are also trying as much as possible not to also shade them with our fears. Say, do not do no. Be free. Be free as a bird. Try everything. Whenever we go out, I've become a storyteller. Whenever we go out, go to eat out, and one of my daughter, she always go for something I've never heard of. I said to her, Lord, what is this again now? Whenever they bring the menu and like everybody's speaking, oh, my to go to now as an African, I look for rice related same food,
Exactly.
because I'm saying that I'm going to be spending $100 plus for a sitting as a family, so I should enjoy myself
Least
in
for the
eating
buffet.
that food.
Exactly.
You understand? But that's not for them. Them is an experience. Like, I've not heard of this food. Let me try it. And sometimes you collect the food, ask for those food, and take 2 or 3 bites,
And
and
that's
like
it.
you frown the face. So I have to like let go of my own food now. Like, okay, come and eat, come and eat from me. Or sometimes it don't even touch my food, deal with it. So all those experience, all those moments,
Mm.
they are what we are creating. We are creating relationship. As you say,
Mm.
we are talking, we are listening, we are
Mm.
playing. And I also like what you said, finding time to talk to them one on one. Sometimes just go for a walk. Sometimes I like going for a walk. I like keeping fit. So I like going for a walk. Sometimes I just pick one of them. Let's go for a jog. We'll jog around and we'll be talking. Or let's go
Yeah.
for a walk. We walk around. And sometimes I go with all of them. But I know that's where I want to cause crowd noise. But sometimes just one on one. Just say, you, yeah, come and join me for a walk. Can go for a walk for like an hour. You
During
understand?
summer, I
Or
do that a
and
lot.
go, yeah.
During summer, I do that a lot. But this weather, I can't take them out.
No,
You only utilize the bike and
it is
treadmill that we
space.
have here.
Yeah, yeah. So sometimes they'll be on scooter, electric scooter. I'll be the one on bike. So we'll be
Mm.
talking and chat. So we do that a lot to like create rapport, which is very, very, very important.
That's a very, very.
Yeah. The final question, we've actually have done very good with all these questions. The final question is, what difference does this kind of father make in a child's life? There's an adage that said a tree is straightened while it is young. Tree is straightened while it is young. What influence does a father that connects with their child make in their life?
So I'll start by saying, as a father, having a very cordial, good relationship in a child's life will make a huge impact. Number one is that a child will have a higher self-esteem along the line. Remember, I always tell you something that most of the time, growing up, we are always scared to ask questions. We are always scared to challenge, whatever things being said to us because of how we were brought up. It was when we started getting exposure that, wait, we are not only meant for us to read, we are meant to reason, to challenge
Mhm.
why they are saying this thing, to have a very critical thinking of why are you telling me this? Why is it important to me? Why must I abide to it? If you're not giving me all this answer, it's not about me reading this thing for me to just, understand. I just take it like that. I need to ask why. Why are we doing this? So what? What will be the outcome? Right? And by doing this and honestly, I look at kids now, I like their confidence. They challenge you as to, why do you want me to do that, Dad? Why must I do it? Where are we going? Why must we do this? So it creates a kind of like, self-esteem with them. It builds their confidence and makes them to be prepared for what is ahead. Now, number two is that it regulates their emotional fit better. Like I said, always being there as a father figure, it's a very huge impact in a child's life. So regardless, my kid have come here at a particular time in school and started crying that I want to speak to you. I said, because sincerely speaking, I've never experienced that before. I when I spoke to my wife and I told her, she was like, can you see? But I said, I'm for Wale, all right? Because, you know, you just have to be there for them. And again, you have to learn how to act less, like to rebel towards instruction. As in always acting in a way whereby it's like the prodigal son that left, right? After taking everything that is possible, still the father
Came back.
still will come in and give him what is rightfully. So we must always have that open hand, regardless of whatever outcome, because the truth is dishonesty we can only plant. There's a lot of things that happen in between. We can plant and water, but remember, there'll be storms of light, there'll be rain, there'll be a lot of things that comes in between, but we just have to be there for them during that period, for them to be able to sprinkle their fruits and keep growing, over time. So, and again, let's communicate openly. let them feel secured in any relationship they find themselves, right? At the end of the day, when we do this thing together, our child will feel safe with their father, doesn't run from him, they run to him. That's what is right. So if you have
That's
that mindset,
clock
it's
it,
going to
clock
be
it, clock it, clock it.
it's going to be a better one for every one of us. So we just have to be there for them, regardless, because they
Yeah,
are learning from us. Yeah.
I agree. A child who feels safe will not run away from their dad. So very, 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 very important. As the last question says, what difference does this kind of father makes? It makes your child always come to you. A fish, dry fish cannot be bent
Yeah.
when it's dry.
True.
So if you want to mold your child, you start early. You
True.
pour yourself to them. You are
Totally.
available.
It's the
You
seed.
are approachable. You
Yeah.
can talk to them. They can talk to you
Be open.
and correct them in love, not in anger. It's now a combination of everything we've said before. If you can do that, then definitely you're going to have a good and a nice relationship with your children, even when they are still young and when they grow old and they
Exactly.
have to live their own life. So it's very, very important to bring all this together. And I really have liked this topic because, as you have alluded to, our kind of upbringing might be more of top to bottom, but we've come to now have kids that top to bottom authority is no longer applicable, neither is it
Yeah.
practicable. Not only because of the time, also because of the location and environment that we find ourselves. We do not want to give birth to timid kids. We want highly confident, sound-minded kids
Exactly.
because there are going to be different challenges thrown in their way. But
Exactly.
if they cannot withstand it based on lack of fathers, you know, one of the big problems most people have over here is lack of father. If a
Yeah.
father is available, he's a disciplinarian, he set boundary, but he set it with love, explaining to their children why this has to be, explaining the consequence of this to them. And whenever they do anything wrong, you correct them in love, but you're also open to embrace it. This has
Let,
actually been a very good
yeah.
one.
Let me just give you an example so that I can make my conclusion. Lastly, I remember a time when I know maybe I've told you before when I finished I wanted to do jam. Yeah, my jam then. I finished from school then, Gobi College, and I was prepared for my jam. And my dad gave me the money to go and get my form so that I can do my job. You know what I did? I used that money. So there's this club in school then that, you just have to like body like
Just
big
a
boys,
class.
right? I was part of, I can't remember the name of the club then. It's like, what is interact club, what is social club, back then in school. So I joined and it was saying that what should bring money. I know my daddy will not give me that money because is that what you send me to go and do at school? I used that money to pay. We ball, my brother. I didn't do that jam. My daddy said, I gave you money to go and buy this thing. What my daddy did was, because he knows that I'm going to feel somehow, he now sent me to one of my uncle in Benin. I went to stay there for 1 year to learn my lesson. When I now came back, I did that jam. I passed that jam. That was that jam that made me, go to university to blah, blah, blah. The rest is history. What I want to bring out here is that controls may win for that moment, meaning that, yes, you have done what your daddy has done, what, is supposed to do for you to learn for that moment. But connections that it made me feel after that period wins for a lifetime, meaning that whatever I am today, assuming the man said, because of that, because he has told us story whereby their father dead, once you spend your money, that's the end of your future. That's the end.
Yeah, you have
There's no
eaten your
story.
lot.
But this man still look at, ayé àwọn ọmọ yóò gbọ́dọ̀ bàjẹ́ sẹ́, kò ń ṣe níwájú. The man still went ahead and said, no, your life, all of you, your life must be good. So what I'm trying to say is at the end of the day, controls may win for that moment, but connections wins you the lifetime. So build the collections among your kids. It's going to be last for a lifetime. You will be at peace with yourself.
Yeah. That's actually a good wrap up. If you want peace at the end, build connection.
Very key.
That's where we're going to end it today. We have not been frequent. We're very busy, but we'll try our best as much as possible
Going
to
forward.
bring more of this. We've actually have enjoyed this. It's And we hope you too have enjoyed it. We'll see you next week by God's grace. Have fun, enjoy yourself, give your children hugging and kisses, and
Yeah,
tell them you love them,
you're
and
proud of
also
them.
set a boundary.
You're
And
very
thank you
correct.
so much, guys.
All
Bye.
right, see you guys. Bye.